everyone, and welcome to the Today's the Day Changemakers podcast. I am Jody Grunwald. This week, my guest is Adam Philipson. Adam is the CEO and president of the Count Basie Center for the Arts. He was born and raised in New York, and at the young age of 13, he worked with a manager and took the stage in an off-Broadway show. By 21, he was on Broadway in Neil Simons Broadway Bound, where he performed in 400 shows. Adam moved to LA where his acting career soared. TV commercials, voiceovers, more theater. But after many performances, he realized he lost interest in being on the stage as he satisfied his dreams in that realm. He decided to get his master's degree in arts administration, and after helping to lead 2 other theater venues, he landed at the Count Basie Center for the Arts. In his 8+ years at the helm of the Basie, he's assisted in ushering a complete turnaround of the theater, both operationally and fiscally. He is responsible for successfully rebranding the Basie to more prominently feature its education and outreach activities and its nonprofit mission as a community change agent that inspires, educates, and entertains. Adam is passionate about all that the arts brings to the community and helping those find ways to connect to it. There's a point in the interview where Adam shares an incredible story about learning the importance of being present and in the moment. This lesson actually happened while he was on the stage. You will not want to miss this. Please subscribe to the Today's the Day Changemakers YouTube channel, download the podcast on all streaming sites, like and follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Today is the Day Live It, and also go to our website at todayisthedayliveit.com. That is todayisthedayliveit.com. Have a great week, everyone.
Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Today is the Day Changemakers. I am Jody Grunwald, and I am so excited to always bring amazing guests to you each and every Wednesday. And today is no different. Today, I welcome Adam Philipson. Hi, Adam. How are you?
Hey, Jody. I'm doing great. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited to have you. There's such an important story to tell here today. So I'm just going to read. I always read the bios of my incredible guests. So I'm going to read a little bit over here, and then we're going to have a great conversation. Adam Philipson became the CEO and president of the Count Basie Center for the Arts on November 1st, 2012. In his 8+ years at the helm of the Basie, he has assisted in ushering a complete turnaround of the theater operationally and fiscally. He is responsible for doubling the operational budget and successfully rebranding the Basie to more prominently feature its education and outreach activities and its nonprofit mission as a community change agent that inspires, educates, and entertains. He has diligently aligned the board around a unified vision for the future and secured almost $27 million, incredible, for its capital campaign, which doubled the square footage, added a new venue, 5 new classrooms, and created a barrier-free environment. And prior to COVID, the Basie had lauded as the #1 seated venue in the state of New Jersey and top 25 in the world based on the number of audience members served. Adam is on the board of the Red Bank River Center and has been appointed to Governor Murphy's task force to reopen the arts, as well as Senator Gopal's reopening Monmouth County work group. Among other activities, Adam is most proud of producing Rock the Rhythm, Beat the Odds in partnership with Remo Drums, casting a national spotlight on the need for the arts for social and emotional learning, which is so, so important. So I'm so excited about having this conversation with you today. Thank you so much.
Me too. Thank you, Jody.
So we met when I was just launching the Applauder Kids Foundation. We had our first conversation. We met with a few of your team, and we were just starting. And I'm so excited that we've got to know each other a little bit over the years. We've run into each other at different events, and now we're actually supporting a couple of kids through your programming. So it's incredible.
So great. I know it's amazing to see that transformation and to watch you guys. I think we were at Toast and we had breakfast. But it's been really great to see how you guys have grown your organization as well. And the support's great. I think you just are picking up the cost for one of our scholarship kids in one of our programs. So it's just been a really great relationship.
I know, that's #3 now. We have 2 at the Monmouth Conservatory of the Arts and 1 now at the Basie, and it's just been incredible. So I love when you see relationships start in one aspect and they just kind of morph over time, and we've been able to engage that way. So that's been incredible. So I appreciate that. So I want to learn more about you, and I want everybody to learn more about you too, because you have, there's a lot of weight right on your shoulders, and this has been a really tough year. But I want to learn more about your background, where you were raised, and what made you come into the arts, and were you in the arts yourself? I'd love for the audience to hear more about you.
Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, I was born and raised in New York City. I have a long background in the arts. So I, went to a performing arts camp called French Woods. A lot of, great people that you see all the time. Jason Robert Brown. We had some really great luminaries that came from that camp. And I was there from a very young age and working all the time. And then from that, there were a bunch of us that started to work with a manager, including my brother and I, and when we began to work professionally. So that was at a pretty young age. I did my first off-Broadway show when I was 13, and just began to continue to study and hone my craft. And then when I was 21, I was on Broadway. So I was in Neil Simons' epic play, Broadway Bound, which is the third part of a trilogy of his Brighton Beach and Biloxi Blues. I played the Eugene character. I did that show for a year. So I had the chance to do about 400 performances. I've done some national tours. I then moved out to LA, and there was a big merger of my agency with another agency. And somewhere, and I worked quite a bit actually in LA when I moved out there. They loved New York trained actors. So I was very meaty. I got to be in War Thing. I Died. I had all these great characters that I got to play. And then somewhere, having done this for a long time, I lost interest, and I think when you realize at a certain level that you're at that top level and, getting whatever callbacks for everything, and it's narrowed down to 2, 3, 4 people, it's almost like you're in the Olympics. And and everyone's a gold medal candidate. Everyone's great. So what really makes that extra little bit that's going to make you win? And I think it's your mind. And I was done. I was done. I had recognized and satisfied my goals and my dreams. And I just didn't have that extra teeny spark that I know you need. So it was very difficult, but I stopped being behind the camera and on stage. Kind of went through a big transformation of what's next. How do I get myself to that next level? What education do I need to fill? And I went and got a master's degree in arts administration, and started to kind of really pick up the business pieces of the business, producing and arts education. And I began to amass a whole next round of life, for me. And this is my third venue that I've been at. I opened up a major center in Santa Monica called the Broad Stage, which was a $45 million building that we built from scratch, and including raising all the funds for it. I was the number 2 person there, and then kind of moved into that next level in the next venue I went into, and then was tapped to make the trek back home and take over the Count Basie in a pretty spectacular moment for them. And you read what I've been able to accomplish there. So and certainly, like everything, all of that background, it all comes together. It all helps me in every day. How do you put on a show? How do you think about the audience? How do you think about the audience experience? How do you fulfill that mission? How do you inspire? There's so many ways in which we try to bring that to the Basie every day. And my background, there's not a piece of my background that doesn't lead me to what I do every day today.
That's incredible. So I just learned a lot. So that was really just incredible. So I obviously have so many questions now because.
Sure.
So singer who likes to dance and likes to act, actor who likes to sing, like what was your triple threat experience? Which was first, second, and third?
No. I mean, I can carry a tune, but that wasn't it. Really it was more straight theater and comedy. I never had that triple threat dynamic. So but I was able to chart a pretty solid career. A few people can say that they made a living from doing what they love to do. So I was lucky to be able to do that. But a lot of TV and a lot of commercials. I was tremendous amount of radio work and voiceover work. So just, it was a big bulk of my life. And of course, I always loved theater. I mean, that was truly there was nothing I loved more than to be on stage with the curtain down, hearing the audience coming in, hearing that buzz, and just knowing that in a moment, a curtain was going to go up and everyone in the room was going to go through an experience together. It didn't matter what mood they were in before they got there. They were all going to come together, and you were going to take them on a journey. And and I try to apply that to everything I do. You're always having to think about the fact that you're taking people on a journey.
So let's go back to one of those experiences for you, right? You're standing behind the curtains down. Was there ever a thought in your mind that you'd be running and doing what you're doing right now on such a huge, enormous level while you were standing on that stage at any point?
I don't think so. I mean, I always knew I loved theaters. So like there would always be these opportunities where you'd hear of an old theater that was disrepair and needed to be saved by some, and I never understood at that time the philanthropy involved and the board work that was involved, and really the understanding of how you run a nonprofit. And I mean, that is in itself a full-time activity of just keeping everybody in the loop and engaged and motivated and on the same page of where we're all headed. So I don't think I had that. I mean, I always knew that wouldn't it be great if I could, run off to London and find some theater. And, I had these fantasies, but I don't think I ever equated that fantasy and like being the CEO and president of a nonprofit arts organization that's making such a major impact. I don't think that those two connected. It took a while for that to happen.
And one of the things I talk to a lot of my guests about is our journeys are so interesting, aren't they? That where you start and how you morph and change over time, things you never thought you'd possibly be doing, and all of a sudden that you're doing things on a grandiose scale. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is. I really always think that that's something that I even tell my kids and that I believe is that sometimes, you'll never know where. Of course, you never know really where it's all going to go. I mean, you can have it so clear in your brain, but it still unfolds in a different way, and it's not exactly the way you thought. But it's just like a snowball effect, and you just keep taking and giving, but also just absorbing, and you kind of grow, and you find your way. You find your way to that right place. I mean, I think I've always sensed that I would be, and I feel that passion to be at a level where I'm making an impact on a big level. I never like to do things on a small scale. I think whenever we've had a chance to do even, large programs regionally or in the state here, I've never thought of like, how can I make an impact with one school? I've always thought about like, how do I impact every school in the region? I feel like if you're going to take that kind of energy, I just want to have those sorts of gigantic visions that can really make a huge impact.
Yeah, well, you definitely have, and I've seen the Basie grow from afar and somewhat connected as well, and it's totally incredible, and I enjoyed hearing about your journey. But I also want to bring about something that I don't think a lot of people understand, and that's what the arts actually do, not just for adults, not just for kids, for all those connected, right? Why do people fill the theaters? They fill the theaters because they want to be connected to something, like you just said. Everybody is on that same journey for that hour, 2 hours, whatever it's going to be. What have you seen in being part of going from being a kid connected to now watching kids connect? What have you seen the arts, for those who don't think that it's so important, as important as some other things, what can you share to really tell the story about it?
It's hard to really make someone outside this world that we live in understand impactfully. It's been something that I think in the field, you have a very short window to get someone's attention, and when you start to bring up the arts, that window closes really quickly. I'm talking about like if you're trying to get a funder or a corporation involved. So we are constantly talking about this life impact that it has. The skill sets that you're able, we're always trying to find the language to explain what we see intuitively, because, you wouldn't ask someone who's a sports-minded person to quantify or in a or even in a qualitative manner, like, can you explain the difference between this kid who wasn't on the team, but now they're on the team and the team won, the regional championship, and what happened to that kid's journey? It's just, that's something that we sort of impactfully know. We know that Cinderella story, but you don't understand that is exactly what happens in our world, in the arts. I mean, that is so profoundly impactful. And it's not just the kid that works so hard and gets the scholarship to go study music or Yale drama. You're talking about the kids who are really disconnected in school at times, that are not feeling part of a group, that don't have maybe athletic, or maybe they do, but they're still feeling that they're not part of a group. So there's so many of those stories where it's just someone for the first time felt comfortable enough to raise their hand in the classroom, or someone for the first time got a pat on the back and said, "You did great." There are so many life-changing moments that we witness when we're steeped in this field every day. And that's why we are relentless and why we're committed. Besides the fact that it changes scores, and besides the fact that it elevates how many times you're going to come to school, and that we know that when there's arts education programs on a day in school, there is a higher level of attendance that day. Kids want to come to experience that. And I don't think that's changed. And I don't think the pandemic's going to take that down. I think we're going to come back even stronger.
Oh, I agree. And I'm with you, right? So you're preaching to the choir here, because I finally, I don't even think when we started our organization, we knew the impact, even though my kids are involved and it's named after my dad who was in the arts. It's seeing the impact and going on the journey with the children that are actually in need of it. And you get to do that every day. Your team gets to do that every day. I get to do that every day. So it's easy to talk with such passion. But like you said, those who are not connected, it's trying to really explain something that's a feeling. And how do you quantify a feeling? How do you quantify, like you said, a child who's looking forward to going to school tomorrow because they're going to be in chorus,
100%. I mean, I know I did. And I was lucky to have some arts in my school. I'm going to say, one thing. I mean, we do have this partnership at the Basie, which is Hackensack Meridian Health. And they took a real leadership interest in helping us in order to build this incredible campus that we have. And I have to tell you that when I heard Bob Garrett, the president and CEO of Hackensack, and I heard him speak about the impact of the arts, and that we know it's part of the healing of our communities. And when I heard him say that, having been in this field for decades, trying to get people to have that recognition, there was a part of me that began to think, we're getting there. It's actually working.
Yeah, there's hope for it. And people are looking for it during this pandemic. I mean, everybody.
More than ever.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I think everybody can't wait for everything to open. And I want to talk about the theater. I want to hear, I tell everybody, I know the size, but tell everybody about the size of the theater, a little bit of history about it. And then also you've done so much. And I want to say that I'm so sorry, because I know it was right before the pandemic hit. You had so much I couldn't wait to come and visit and be a part of. So I can't wait for things to reopen up more and be able to do that. So please share more about the Basie.
Yeah, sure. Well, the Count Basie Center went into its existence in 1926 when a lot of state historic theaters were being built. It was a movie house. It was a vaudeville house. It's absolutely beautiful. It went through, like many theaters did, it went through its disrepair in the 60s and 70s. A lot of them were run down, and many of them closed and saw the wrecking ball. The Basie was saved. It wasn't called the Basie at the time. It was called Walter Reed Carlton Theater. And then Walter Reed was like a movie conglomerate, like a Ziegfeld or a Lowe's at the time. They were Walter Reed theaters everywhere. This one was called the Carlton, and that's why our donor lounge is still called the Carlton to this day. But Walter Reed was about to close the theater. The Arts Council, the Monmouth County Arts Council, came together, a group of passionate arts lovers, and they were able to come together, and they were able to get an anonymous donation, and they were able to purchase this disrepair building for, I believe it was $90,000 or something like that. It was Walter Reed Jr. sold it. The story goes he went skiing that next weekend and died in a skiing accident. So it was one of the stories of the Basie where just fate came together to make something happen, where they were able to buy this building. They started to run it. There were lots of programmers that happened there. There were operas, there were classical music, there was a lot happening, but it was very hard to run such a large theater. And at some point in time in the late 80s, they were able to get the name of Count Basie, who's from Red Bank. And it was just the estate and the trust and Basie family were able to give that right to the theater to be able to name it for him. And then they helped to form, the Arts Council helped to form the nonprofit organization. So then they gifted that building to the nonprofit, and that was really the beginning of having it run by a professional organization that were strictly running on restoring and repairing and programming the venue. In addition to the other things, the Arts Council were doing so much for this community, and running a theater on top of it began to take too much of the attention from what I hear the story went. So that's the story. Since then, we knew that we were going to be expanding with a major capital campaign. And so we named instead of the Count Basie Theater, we moved it to the Count Basie Center for the Arts, because we really knew that we were going to be having this arts campus that was going to have multiple venues, an increased growth in the school that we have. We have lots of classrooms on site. We have a new venue that we've opened up called the Vogel, which is a standing room venue that in its time, when it's open at full capacity, will be 800 standing. Seated will be about 400. Right now, with our capacities, it's about 150 at tables and chairs that are 6 feet spaced apart. It's a beautiful lobby. There's elevators, there's new classrooms, there's a rooftop lounge, there's new bars, there's new donor spaces. I mean, it's really, it was so open and ready and poised to be this major, much anticipated opening. And like everybody, we were shuttered. So I think it was incredibly disappointing. At the same time, we took that spirit of what we're doing in terms of how are we serving. I mean, we weren't building a building just to be a monument in town. We were building it to be able to fill the rooms and serve our community at an even better level. So that's what we've done. That's what we've done without being able to be in the building, whether it's virtually or creating off-site programming or figuring out how to interpret the CDC guidelines so that we can program on site safely. And that's what we've done. We've just continued to push and push and push until we can finally get back open.
So what are your thoughts now going into the summer? What are your thoughts now? I know every week and every day is so different, right? We never know what capacity is going to be. And if you can give us some highlights of what your thoughts are as we move into the summer.
I think as we move into the summer, we'll be seeing a lot more outdoor programming. I think the capacities outdoor are going to continue to grow. We'll be programming outdoors at a venue that we helped to create that's called Concerts on the Green, which is at the Sun Eagles Golf Course in Eatontown. We've been able to find this incredible space. It'll be covered and tented, not enclosed, but covered so that the weather will be able to it won't impact our performances. So you'll see us being very busy. I think we'll have probably about 100 shows that'll be going on over the summer, as well as indoor still at the Vogel. We're hoping that the Vogel will continue to increase. I'm hoping that the Basie, our historic venue, will probably move its way up to 30% capacity. I hope I'm right. So 30% for us would be 500-600 people. So and we can do that in the venue, still spaced out 6 feet. So you'll have groups of 2, 4, or 6, but then you'll have 6 feet around those areas. So we'll be able to do that. We could fill the venue, again, socially distant would be about 500 or 600. So that's what we're hoping for the historic venue. And then by the fall, that we're all going to be back to, I'm not going to say normal, but at least back to full capacity.
Yeah, some sort of new normal. Isn't that the words now?
I think so.
Yeah, new normal and pivot. Those were like the highlight words of how do you hate pivot, right? I mean,
we're not allowed to use the word pivot anymore. It's been banned. But aside from that, yeah.
I'm glad. I use shift. I'm trying to come up with
good.
Yeah, another one.
I might pivot and use shift. Oops, I just said it. I'm sorry.
There you go. Whatever works. That's great. So obviously your team, from the size it was to the size that I don't know where you are right now. So how big was your team pre-COVID, employee size wise?
So we had, we had about 35 full-time employees. and then probably somewhere around 200 part-time employees, whether that's security, ushers, ticket takers, box office staff, crew that's required for one show or the other. So it was some of our teaching artists and other teachers. So that's where we were when we were full capacity. We were hit. I have to say that our production side was hit the hardest because we just had no work. So we didn't have 2 venues that were fully capacity. So for a while, from starting in March 12th, we really had nothing until we began to creep back open again in October with the Vogel. So we had to furlough some staff. We really had some interesting moments over the summer where we had some discussions with the board. We have an incredible board. We have a very generous board, and not only generous from a philanthropic standpoint, but with their time and their love and passion for the arts and their concern. And we all agreed that we could not shutter our venue, that we had to stay open for the health and well-being of our community, that we had to keep our classes going, whatever we were allowed to do, and we had to be leading, showing that if done correctly and safely, it could be done. Because I think what was happening everywhere else was just doors were closing and you weren't getting to see any of the arts. So when you're met with that level of support and passion, and whether it's writing a check or just giving you a pat on the back that, like, let's keep going, yes, where other organizations might have been meeting as a board to say we really have to close, ours were saying no way. So our staff stayed committed. I mean, we all took a pay cut, we all took some time cut, but we remained committed to doing everything that we could. At this point, now that we're sort of creeping back, we've restored folks. We're mostly back to normal, except for some of the crew still. And when we have shows, it may be that there's 40 to 50 to 60 security, bartenders, et cetera, that we're using for our shows, but it's not where we were. And we just can't wait to get back to that. But our board even created a fund, a small fund to be able to help our part-time staff that were used to gigging and getting a gig here or there. And we were able to help everybody as much as we could. And, it's really those kinds of stories make you understand why this is such a treasured venue on so many levels. And I really hope that what we were committed to during the pandemic was transparent communication, consistently communicating with where we were. We did reach out and ask for help, but we had to just explain why it's imperative that we stay open.
Incredible, just incredible to have a board like that. And I know I was seeing your updates. You definitely felt like you were connected, that you didn't go away, and which was great. The kids that we were funding were still going through your programming, so we were that way. And it was, it's amazing to see. And I know that you have incredible people on your board. So kudos to everyone, and for keeping the funds coming in, even for those part-timers, because there were so many people, like you said, they kind of had a shutter. There was nothing more that they could come up with or do.
And also, kudos to the team, because I think when you sit there in my position and you're like, we should do this, we should do that, we should, and everyone went through what they went through. We were all going through things. Every one of us was affected on so many levels, whether you were now home parenting, whether, you had relatives that were sick, whether you got, everyone has been affected in this last year. But to be able to say, hey, this is really what we need to do. And to have eyes around you nodding and saying, we're doing it, and taking their piece and saying, I'm doing this, I'm doing this. If we didn't have that, it would have been a great idea. But it's really every one of my team members that got us through. It's just been amazing.
Well, it sounds like you allowed flexibility within the framework, right? You have the framework, but you need the creativity and the flexibility within that framework to make things happen and being open.
You had to, 100%. You're right, Jody. Yep.
That's awesome. So what advice do you have to those, I mean, that are now looking at, I mean, this is such a loaded question, right? You know, those that are looking to the arts, right? That's where they're going to school for right now. None of us really thought there could ever be a pandemic, never mind what's gone on, you know, and to the extreme that it's gone on for so long now. What do you say to those going into the arts, being someone who has been in the arts and now you've
Yeah.
served on both sides?
You know, I think that we're going to be in a resurgence very shortly that's going to kind of be this sort of creative heyday. I mean, we're going to see an experience of wanting to consume, wanting to participate that we probably haven't seen for decades. You know, that level of just of the need to create and the need to be in areas where creativity is happening. You know, we've all been hibernating in our homes, watching Netflix and doing all the things that we've done to consume the arts, but not necessarily outdoors in that communal experience. So, you know, I believe there's going to be unbelievable opportunity for artists and for people to create, but it's a different lens. You know, I mean, like, we've been changed by what we've been through. So is it going to look the way it looked 3 years ago? I don't think so. I can't tell you what it's going to look like, but I know that, you know, there's been people that were in school, their freshman years in college, let's just say, you know, were heartbroken. You know, they went to school to be able to be on the stage and with or playing in orchestras, you know, and those were disbanded. And although people found creative ways to try to continue to be passionate about getting the arts out, that was affected. People that were in their senior years of high school that, you know, are taking a gap year because they didn't want to start that in a pandemic from home, you know. So I do believe there was this minor glitch in sort of the trajectory that's common, but I think that's going to come back. I really think that that's going to come back to some sense of normalcy. And I believe that how we've all been so deeply impacted is going to, and not just the pandemic, you know, it's the diversity and equity and inclusion work that's been happening. It's been on the social work that's been happening. I mean, there's so many ways that we have been changed now that I believe all of that's going to become new creative juice for us to be able to be who we are as creative beings.
Absolutely. And so you're, you know, what you were just saying is so true. So my daughter she's an opera singer, and she's going double major to Westminster Choir College. And she was a senior last year. This is her freshman year. And she saw those people, you know, students that registered and they stayed for a few months and then they left school, right? They said they're going to take the rest of the year off. It was too much. And she's a music ed major as well. So she's double majoring in music ed and opera. And
good for her.
Yeah. But you know what? For her specifically, the passion became even greater because she then started even teaching on her own too and trying to bring music wherever she could. But for some, it was too much. Like, they needed to be able to, because she was supposed to go travel to like Vienna and all over with the school this past year. So, you know, I think it's everybody handles it very, very differently. And I do hope that those that did take that gap year, that they do come back and give their talent to the community, because, you know, and they're able to do that in this next semester going forward, because we want to have all of these talented, wonderful kids giving from their heart.
No,
take the stage, you give from your heart.
No doubt. It's been you said it all right. And I also think that it's just going to be needed more than ever. You know, we will need this creative outlet, and watching people express what we went through. You know, there's so many people that are going through so much right now, but they can't put a finger on what it is. There's just all these new feelings that we've never had. And that's what's so amazing about artists and musicians and opera singers, is that they can evoke something in you and explain something and write the show, or write the one-man plays that are all happening right now, or one-woman shows, you know, that are all trying to get at what we've experienced. You know, this is by far, at least in many of our generations, the most impactful experience that's ever happened to us on a global level, you know, short of a world war, right?
Yeah. Yeah, something we never ever thought we'd experience, ever. You mentioned before about social and emotional learning, and I think for so many kids, I've seen kids struggle, younger kids than my daughter, who have been in the programming, and they're really struggling, and they're using the music as a way to connect. We had one child who wouldn't even leave their room only for their lessons, only for our lessons, otherwise deep depression. So that creativity is that outlet. And so thank you to, for all the work you guys do in order to continue to keep the kids connected. As adults, we can't understand it. I can't imagine being a younger child trying to understand this as well. It's a lot.
No, and that's, there's so much other, look, in my opinion, although it's an impactful tool for connection and social media, but so many things have been put into this 10-second or less TikTok world that we're watching and living in now, and it's a great outlet, and many people have harnessed it in such powerful ways. But I know I'm always battling with my kids is to say, turn it off. That's not real right now. You need to be real. You need to be with people. You need that. I don't know that we all understand as a younger generation how much we need that, but you can see it. You can see it like you described, and so just thankfully, there's a lot of good people doing such good work to continue to get this out there.
Absolutely, absolutely. You also just mentioned too something I definitely want to talk to you about, which is Red Bank is a very diverse area, and we're talking about social justice and the things that have been going on there, and I wanted to ask you, being where you are located, what is the Basie doing yourself? What are you involved in that, is really speaking to making sure that these conversations, these important, and I keep saying conversations, but to me, conversations without action doesn't mean anything. There has to be action from the conversation. So the planning that we put together has to morph into something. So can you share anything that's going on in the Red Bank area that you may be working on?
Yeah, I mean, for us, we have a couple of things going on. One is that we are continually looking at what new programming and new conversations can we have with our community so that we're really making an impact from the programming that we're doing, the community work that we're doing. So one example is Calpuli. So we have a ballet folklorico Mexican dance program that has become a staple of what the Basie does. We have a youth program, we have an adult program, we have somewhere between pre-pandemic, we were at about 60 participants. It's gone down a little bit just because it's really hard to be indoors doing that kind of space. We've been outdoors for a long time. We're indoors now, but spaced out 6 feet with masks on. But that's a commitment that we have to this community, to be able to celebrate the cultures and to honor the traditions. We just started a gospel choir. So the Basie Gospel Choir. So that's being led by an incredible music director named Gwen Moten, who will be guiding and leading us through a journey of understanding the music. And we're looking for tenors, by the way. We're looking for some tenors. So programmatically, that's what happens. From a board and a staff and a community standpoint, we are working on our diversity, equity, and inclusion work that is going to guide towards how is the Basie changing, because the Basie, like every organization, needs to put on a new set of glasses and see a more holistic perspective that's more inclusive, and that's where we're headed and leading. And that's going to be a really exciting journey that we're on. That's going to impact our community and our board and our staff. And our programs. So I'm really excited about that work. Otherwise, we've been partnering with NJPAC and some of our other partner venues that are really doing some good work of hosting symposiums and bringing conversation to the table. Red Bank has been doing some good work in those areas as well, being an anti-racist town. So we're a part of all of those efforts, and from our hope and perspective is leading in those efforts as well.
Oh, that's incredible. And thanks for sharing that. And I love that you're bringing out culture through dance and all the thing and the choir. I think that is incredible and wonderful. And I can't wait to see some of the things that are going to be happening with that. That's awesome. You also are doing something new at Lake House, right? I believe that's something.
Yes.
Yeah.
We forged a new partnership with Lake House community and their incredible program. We particularly love the way they very much like our conservatory with classical music, they really have everything laid out. It's not just getting together and jamming. There's deep music education. There's commitment to the teaching of those instruments and that craft. And, we've been having long conversations with John Liedersdorf, who's another person you should interview one day if you haven't yet. But he's just an amazing leader as well in this community. And, we knew that we shared some vision. How can we together impact the community? How can we bring Asbury Park and Red Bank together? Because rather than feeling like, we're these two music entities that kind of are disconnected, even though we're really quite close, how do we become part of this larger region, this larger community? So it's great to be aligned with other leaders in Asbury and in the Asbury music scene that share our vision. So that's been exciting.
Yeah, John's great, and I definitely want to have him on the show. And Lake House is one of our studio partners as well. So I love working with them.
That's right.
You're right. You guys are so close to each other. It's really not that far. So it was wonderful to see. I was so excited to see that you had that new relationship there. So that's awesome.
Great.
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Adam. What were you going to
No,
say?
I was just going to say that I think one of the things that we realized, especially with our chairman, Jeremy Grunin, who is one of the more not only generous philanthropic with their time but his their funds, of course, but their time and his perspective and his leadership and his vision and his belief in where we are, and it's really made a lot possible for us right now in terms of our growth and our movement. And I think Jeremy and I share this real belief that in the worst possible moments, of which I think we're working our way through, there's opportunity to really come together. And I think more than ever, the arts needs that. I think the nonprofit world needs that, but the arts needs that. There's so much duplication, and sometimes that's great. It needs to have that. But in many areas and many times, there have to be ways that we can come together and make a better impact together. And that's kind of why Lake House felt like at the worst possible time, there couldn't be a better time. And I'm really proud of that discussion that we had and the work that we're going to do with John and others to, as we continue. I mean, that's what happened with the Monmouth Conservatory, and I think there'll be other opportunities as well.
Oh, I'm all about collaboration and connection. That's everything that it's about. And Jeremy, as you know, he's been so supportive of the Applaud Kids Foundation. And I know he does things with his heart. He really cares about the arts community and the community at large. So I think we're all very blessed to have him.
We sure are.
Yeah, without a doubt. So, I think that what you said about nonprofits too, there's such an importance of them to work together. Right. And if you and not just that, funders like to see that in many cases, to see that commitment, collaboration together. And when you do that, you help a broader spectrum of the community and not to be short-sighted that you're alone.
I mean, I think the hardest part about that, Jody, is just it's not that any of us are short of ideas. It's just the implementation of these types of partnerships, mergers, collaborations. They're intense, they're not easy. They're two cultures trying to figure out how to come together. There's marketing, there's legal, there's financial, and I've talked with the Arts Council, the Jersey State Arts Council to say, this is a great area where the Arts Council could be in support, help us foster these kinds of conversations, whether it's giving us guidelines and templates or funding. To say, look, this is an important conversation, because it's hard to prioritize when especially now, everyone's just trying to stay afloat, stay open. It's hard to ask someone, can we talk about something really interesting? It's hard to do that. It takes, the Basie's really lucky in that it has the community, the staff, and the board. And I've really tried as the leader to recognize that we have all of that and leverage those resources, human and capital, to be able to make some changes that are going to last for decades to come.
That's amazing. I think the one thing that has to be is trust. If you cannot trust, if you don't feel trust with that other partner, and you can't, I mean, I think there's,
Totally right.
because I worked for national nonprofits, and there was always this fear, well, if we get involved, then we're going to take on all the work and the other partner won't do enough, or who's going to manage the money piece of it, and how's that all going to work? And but if you could sit down and be open and have the conversation with the greater good of the community at large at the end of it, start with the end in mind, then there should be a way as human beings to sit down and create together.
That's so dead on. That's exactly it. Yep, you're right. And trust is key. You hit it.
Yeah, trust is totally key. So you've met some incredible artists in the years. I mean, you've got to work with some amazing artists, and I would love if you could share, is there something that stands out that was a learning experience that you had with any artist that was just incredible, an incredible experience that you could share? Any one person, maybe multiple?
I had, when I was on Broadway, I worked with a woman, and keep in mind, like in my role as a CEO, oh my God, I've had so many unbelievable experiences with incredible people that, and I can go there too, of course, just, what it takes when you're on the other side, which we are, of meaning, we're on the other side of the curtain and we're, presenting or producing, it's hard to always be able to put yourself in that other side of like what it takes to be a creative person. And so I try to really be able to do that with my team. And I try to straddle both of those worlds where I understand how hard it is for what an artist does to do, where it may look easy for us and it may, from our perspective, and yes, we're trying to make sure that it sells and that people have a good experience and that they're treated kindly when they come to the theater. But there still is the magical moment. There still is that moment when there's nothing more that we can do, and now it's all about the artist and what they're going to do. And there's a bridge that happens somewhere in there. And our job is always, my job and all of our jobs is always to make sure that we're making sure that you have been created and given such a safe, nurturing environment that you can evoke from you that experience that everyone's out there to pay for. But when I was on Broadway, I was working with this woman named Elizabeth Franz. She's one of my favorite actresses. She played my mother in the role, and she demanded a very high level of connection. She was not an actress that did her thing, and acted with imaginary emotion. Her emotion and her reality came right from me, or from other actors that she was with. And she was incredibly intuitive. And we were on stage. We were in the middle of her major monologue. It's about a 20-minute monologue that she had. And we had 2,000 people in the audience watching the show. And it was this very powerful moment. And, usually I was incredibly grounded and just, with her every breath. And something came in my brain. I don't know, it might've been, what am I gonna have for dinner later, or something like that pulled me out of the moment. And she saw it. And she stopped talking. And, which of course brought me back to like, oh my God, is it my line? Oh my God, what happened? Right. And in front of 2,000 people, she went like this to me. She went, she sort of told me to watch her. I'm like, oh my God, where is this going? And then she turned away from me and she did the rest of her monologue, as if I wasn't there. And when the curtain came down, I don't think I ever cried as hard. I mean, and we went at it. And, she gave me a schooling and a lesson that I will never forget, which is what it takes to be at that level, what it takes to be in that level of greatness, how hard it is to stop all of these distractions that are pulling your brain every second and just stay in the moment and give someone your full being. And I'll never forget that. What a lesson to learn. And so, in some way, you always try to bring that to everything you do. I'll never forget that kind of a live in front of 2,000 people schooling of what it takes to be great.
I have to tell you, you just took me on that journey with you. I felt like I was in the audience of seeing that happen to you while you were just saying that to me. I will never forget that story you just But it is such a great, I almost think like that is such a great story to tell kids. Think about, you talked about TikTok. We know that it's this, this instant gratification. This is the generation for that, right? But they can't ever put all of their attention most times to one thing. What a great learning experience for you and all of us who are now just listening to that. Because now when I'm not, and I'm going to fragment my attention, I'm going to remember that story. Yeah. That was great. Thank you for sharing that.
Oh, my pleasure.
So I could talk to you for hours because you have so much great energy and so much to share. But and I hope you'll come back because I want to ask you my last question. But I hope you'll come back and give us an update about the Basie.
For sure, I would love to. And we really appreciate you inviting us. I mean, obviously, it's fun to share my story, but the most important story is really the Basie and our team and what we've been able to do for this community and everything we've talked about, just how important it is. And so thank you so much for recognizing that and doing the great work that you're doing to get these stories out there. They're so important.
No, I appreciate it. I have amazing guests, so I'm very lucky. So I ask everybody this last question because there's so much learning that we can all do from this question. If you knew then what you know now, and it doesn't have to be one thing, but what would it or one or two things be?
I think that I would whisper into that young person's ear, you're always going to get your opportunity. So you just better be ready. And I think that's, sort of how I have always tried to approach, even with COVID. I mean, nobody was ready. And it was an opportunity, to really either lead or just, fall. And so I think that's the message I would say. It's just the amount of work that it takes to do anything of importance is tremendous, and nothing good happens without a tremendous amount of hard work. And so even though people are being discovered, luckily, maybe overnight, and things are happening and careers are not following the same trajectory, and certainly they're nowhere near as long as they have been in the past, it doesn't mean that it's not hard work. And it doesn't mean that you're going to not have to pay that hard work in one way or another. I don't believe any of that's changed. So I think I would just continue to remind myself that hang in there, don't give up. And and it's hard work.
Absolutely. So now I didn't get to ask you, and I said that was the last question, but I do want to know. So is are your children following in your footsteps? Because I think you're doing things, right?
I mean, my children are dabbling in my footsteps. They're both incredibly talented. I think they're both performing, and they're performers. And I've tried hard to just be able to show it to them and share it and expose, but I don't want to force, I don't want to force anything onto them. And if that's where their world goes, it's great. They certainly have opportunities, and I know what a powerful environment it is to be able to get your kids in shows. And I know that how important that is for them. And I've seen that that's been incredible for them. But, I've also watched my kids in their sports or whatever else they've been doing, which have really shown them other levels of confidence and courage. So we'll see where it all goes. They're ferociously talented. They both sing. They do the Kalpuli dancing. They, they're in their plays. So we'll see how it all unfolds. But
I see such pride in your face, and I know how we feel about our kids, right? I mean, it's incredible. And that now, instead of you being on the stage per se, you're in the audience cheering them on very loudly, I'm sure, just like Meg.
oh my God, of course. I've seen your daughter's talent as well, and it's just like you watch that what comes out of their mouths, and there's it's amazing. It's an incredible feeling.
It is, but on my side, it skipped a generation. And your side, it just went, which was awesome for you.
That's funny.
Kudos to you. So thank you so much for sharing
Thanks, Jody.
and sharing lots of great things and really showcasing what the arts brings to communities through your past experience, as well as what the Basie is bringing currently, even in these challenging times, to the audiences, across our area, to continue to connect them to the arts. So thank you for that.
My pleasure. Thanks, Jody.
No problem. So everybody, I'm just going to say what I always say at the very, very end. Again, thank you to Adam. And today is the day. You cannot go back to yesterday, and you do not yet own tomorrow. So what steps today can you take to get yourself just a little bit closer to your goals? I look forward to seeing everybody next week on the Today is the Day Changemakers podcast and YouTube channel. Have a great week, everyone.